Hello and welcome to Frank's School. I think this is the 15th day of the fourth year. As I'm numbering it, it might be the 14th. I stopped because of the Southern Cove Power Union, and I put that on, and I did find the footage that I thought I'd lost, and I put that on, so I'm a little mixed up on that. But now I'm going to go back to what I was talking about with Gilbert and Sullivan and the questionable Victorians. That's the term I'm going to use for now. There's lines of dots in the videos now. It seems like I always have some issue. I'm not sure why they're there. Maybe Shirley can help me figure that out. She's pretty good. Anyway, back to the Victorians. The white man's burden. That was, it was Kipling wrote a poem that they called that, I think, and it opens with that. That phrase is part of what I'm talking about. It's the white man's burden to go out and civilize the world. That confidence that the Victorians, I'm going to use that term, were right, and they should spread the word, like Onward Christian Soldiers. Manifest destiny comes to mind too in America. It was just, manifest means obviously, it's just obviously the destiny of the United States to occupy the entire continent. Well, I don't know. Well, I said about I'm going to go on a kind of a personal pursuit. Yeah, I don't want to be too self-indulgent. I mean, it would not be right well, I guess maybe blogs might do that, but to call it a course and to teach it if I were just being self-indulgent. But then too, I think of that phrase, a life unexamined is not worth living. I'm going to take the opportunity to examine my reaction for a while, not the whole year. I'm hoping not, but I'm going to start the year like this. My reaction to something that seems to have happened in the mid-19th century. I can't even say exactly when it is, but I stopped liking literature of that time, pretty much. It's very hard for me to come up with literature that I really love after about 1880. I mean, there are a few exceptions, but not very much. I mean, it's like I'm a child at that. My friend Mike Hernkane, who is an English teacher too, and is very knowledgeable about literature. I think that used to frustrate him because I just didn't seem to know anything about 20th century literature. Well, it's true. I didn't like it. The poetry after Tennyson, it's hard for me to come up with poetry that I really like. Kipling is almost right there at the turning point. He's the one that came up with that. Some of Kipling's stuff I guess I like, but they're losing, history is losing me. Prose, you know, everything's about novels at that point, so much of it, and I just, it's hard for me to find stuff. So music is another case. I understand and love the music of the Baroque period and the Romantic period, also to some extent. But by about the mid-18th century, about Tchaikovsky's 1812 overture, about that time, I don't love it as much. And you get into the popular music of the 20th century. I don't like jazz very much. I don't like what is it, boogie woogie. Not really. Some of the 30s stuff and then rock and roll. And folks, I can find stuff that I like, but there's something that happens to me there. Art. Another example, there comes a point where I don't understand the art, and that happens to a lot of people. I think modern art has a kind of a bad name. I think there's a lot of people that just don't understand it, and they don't like it. Fashion, well, you know, fashion doesn't mean quite as much to me, but still, yeah, at least men's fashion. Dance, again, it doesn't matter quite so much to me, but I'd really rather do the polka or the waltz than, or square dance even, than some of the dances that came in the 20th century. Architecture, well, certainly architecture. the architecture that I love is timber framing, vernacular architecture, and the buildings that were built. You know, maybe you could even start with the Eiffel Tower, structural steel. I thought to myself, maybe that's what it is. I'm going to try to pinpoint what is it, if I can. What is it that makes me that makes it that I bail out? I don't know. Demographics. By that it means, where do people live? How many people live in various places? And the building up of the cities. Maybe that was it. And of course that was related to the Industrial Revolution, very much so. You know, and maybe it's the Industrial Revolution itself. Maybe it took 100 years for that to play out. I don't know. But people were leaving the countryside, moving into cities. And I've begun to think also they were leaving their animals. They were leaving in the cities were people. And the animals that were part of the support structure were now on the farms. I don't know. I really don't know. Technology. Well, I don't. You know, I like the technology up through flat belt pulleys and Babbitt bearings and water power and wind power and all the inventions. But you know, about the time, even electricity, the use of electricity, maybe, I don't know, is that so? But there comes a point where the technology does not appeal to me. Not as much. I don't understand it. As I could put science here as well. I certainly don't understand the changes that occurred in science. I mean, I don't say that they're not true. Now you get into the internet and cell phones and personal computers. That's another matter in a way. And could that have ever happened without the other changes? I don't know. What is it? What is it that did this? Fossil fuels? Aha. You know, I thought maybe that's it. When they started to use coal. And then later gasoline and diesel fuel. Jet fuel. Maybe that was it. That would be back in the mid-17th century. Maybe that was it. Because that brought on this, well, the steam engine didn't depend on fossil fuel, but or metallurgy. I've even thought, well, maybe it's just as simple as what they figured out with steel, that you could take a block of iron and machine it out well enough to make a piston out of steel. That made a steam engine possible, and then later internal combustion engines possible. I don't know. I'm going to explore this. And James Burke, now those seem to be pretty popular videos. As I guided the viewing, I added a gloss, my own gloss to James Burke's work. Well, if you've gone through that, you've seen that, and he is more or less chronological, and he talks about some of these things. Well, if I had answers, I wouldn't be doing this. But I'm going to pursue this question. What is it that happens with me around the time of the Victorians? And I'm not going to go at it straight on. That would be too boring. I'm sort of going to go in a sense roundabout. And I think maybe tomorrow, today's Thursday, tomorrow's Friday, I think tomorrow I'll explain some of the things, some of the ways I'm going to approach this issue. Well, you may or may not want to come along on this journey, but anyway, that's my intent. Bye for now.